Breaking news over the past 10 minutes on social media, as it's now been reported that Newcastle United have called the deal off on Marc Guehi. They will not sign the Crystal Palace centre half, and the issue and the overlying question is that Newcastle have got massive problems to deal with here, because we spent about a month trying to bring in the Crystal Palace defender. According to some journalists like Luke Edwards, has said that Palace have stuck to the valuation of £70 million, which meant that if that is true, Palace have had that price tag the entire time. Newcastle knew that price tag and they weren't willing to meet it. So how you can spend an entire month of the transfer window looking to bring this player when you never had any intention of actually paying that kind of money for him is questionable, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, it is important to note that Marc Guehi is cup tied. He's played in the Carabao Cup for Crystal Palace, so if Newcastle was to bring the defender in, he is not allowed to play for Newcastle in the Carabao Cup this season, which means that he's paying £70 million for someone that can't even play some of the cup games for you. And that's a big factor for Newcastle, and that's something that the club did have to look into. And you can kind of blame us for doing that if you feel like we should have paid that money for him, because we could have had this deal wrapped up a week or 2 weeks ago. However, some of the reports on social media, some of these exclusive articles claim that Palace have actually moved the goalposts. Some people are actually claiming that Palace have upped the price to £75 million just to wind Newcastle up and just to almost give us those fingers and just to stick it to us after what has been, I've got to be honest, poor from us. I'm not going to lie about it. I made a bit of a Keegan-esque rant a couple of days ago, but my honest thoughts in the window. I think when the window's over, which is a couple of days now, I will actually come out and make a full video just dissecting the window itself. But it's poor. It is poor. We haven't got any European football this season. We needed to give Eddie Howe the full backing, and I honestly think that the manager has not been fully backed, because if Eddie Howe was so persistent in bringing Marc Guehi in, I think Newcastle, if they had backed Eddie Howe, they would have just bought Guehi for £70 million. It wouldn't have been an ideal scenario for them. Would have overpaid for the player, but it would have got him in and just made sure Eddie Howe has something to work with. We now have a real opportunity of not signing anyone, and that's the problem here. It's not the fact we've lost Marc Guehi, it's the fact that the window closes in a couple of days, and we actually could not have a centre half bought, not have a winger bought, and Newcastle have bought. Well, haven't even bought Kelly out was free. Got 2 goalkeepers and a young kid that's going to be a striker in a few years' time for Newcastle. We haven't bought any quality that's actually going to start for Newcastle. And you can't look at this transfer window and tell me Newcastle's had a good window. No, we haven't. It's been a poor window, and questions do have to be asked, because we've spent a good month on this. This deal was close a month ago. So how have we not progressed in a month? And how, let's say, if things were so bad behind the scenes for Crystal Palace, how have we then not went and looked at our options? We're talking about Leighton Sinatkin now, a defender from the Bundesliga, but we're talking about this the last couple of days of the window. Why was this not looked at weeks ago? And I don't need to come out here, and you guys don't need to tell me that's what we should have done. That's what we have staff members to do. Newcastle have been poor in this window. It's been so poor. I honestly think Eddie Howe's been, I wouldn't say hung out to dry, but Eddie Howe's not had the full backing. He hasn't had the backing of his club, and I don't know if that's Paul Mitchell's fault, maybe Eddie Howe. I don't know if that's his actual transfer targets. I don't know if the PAF's just been a bit slow, perhaps, of coming in for Paul Mitchell and Eddie Howe. But something's not happened. Something's not went well. Of course, we just lost Amanda Murder. Dan Ashworth, of course, left last season. So Newcastle had a restructuring, and what has went on with this restructuring has not shaped out well. We have lost out on Marc Guehi. So if we're going to go off the likes of Luke Edwards and what the other journalists have said about that £70 million valuation, that's been Palace's valuation the entire time. They haven't took the mick out of Newcastle, with the exception of Parish perhaps going out in the media and trying to force a bidding war. But Newcastle's been aware of this price tag, and they're stuck with this deal. They kept just low balling Palace, 60 million, 62 million, 65 million, just kept low balling these offers where Palace aren't interested in selling. They're so Anderson, so Palace want to sell Guehi. They need a big chunk of money for him. Not to mention as well that in Guehi's contract, Palace doesn't get all the money, so some of the money goes elsewhere as well. So I can kind of understand why they're doing it. If I was Crystal Palace position, would I be trying to sell Marc Guehi? Absolutely not. They've already lost Elise, they've already lost Anderson. So for Newcastle to be fully aware of all this stuff going on, and then after a month and not have the player, And we're looking at the stage in the transfer window now where it looks like we might actually not sign a centre-half. So we might actually not have an alternative option to buy because we've got just over 1 day to actually fully structure a deal. Newcastle have almost shot themselves in the foot, and I'm just so confused of how this has happened. Again, I don't feel like I'm being negative coming out and saying this. I feel like I'm a bit of a realist. Our preparation's been poor. I think our signings have been poor, and Newcastle have got to look at themselves and go, well, are we a team that's aspiring to try and get Champions League football this season? Because that transfer window tells me we are not looking to get Champions League football. It tells me straight away we're happy where we are now. We're happy potentially finish 7th, 8th, maybe sneaking into the Conference League. But we don't seem to be a club that, considering how ambitious our owners are, we don't seem to show that ambition in the market. And I think the way Newcastle play so far this season, do we look like an ambitious team when we actually play football? I mean, Forest, I thought we were better yesterday, but even then, we still haven't been great in these games. We've got a lot of good players on that pitch. If Newcastle don't sign anyone now, do we still have a good team? Of course we do, but what I've seen so far this season on the pitch and what I've seen off the pitch of these transfers, we seem to have lost that ambition. I don't know what it is. I don't know where the sparks went, but what an awful window this has been. How could he spend a full month on Marc Guehi? And 1, but we haven't signed the guy. 2, we haven't got any closer to signing the guy. And 3, we haven't got any options where Newcastle can now jump into someone else. I don't understand what's happened here. I do not understand what is going on. And again, it's quite hard to kind of come out in a video and point the finger towards someone, because where should the finger be pointed at? Because it assumes such a confusing window for Newcastle, and it's just not good enough, is it? I mean, if this is a team that's looking for Champions League football, it was at a Champions League quality window from us. No chance. I mean, no chance. Well, John Ruddy, Vlak Medimos, and then you got Lloyd Kelly and Osula. Are you joking? What European football are you getting with those signings now? Again, I think a couple of those are good squad depth players, but you've got to look into the context that Newcastle have missed out in European football, which means there's a lot of pressure on Eddie Howe and a lot of pressure on the players to do well this season, because of the fact that we have to essentially do better in the league than what we did last year, which I think we can do with the team we've got now. But that was a real opportunity where Newcastle could have showed some intent, get a bit of statement into our club, and just make sure that in the cup competitions and in the league, Newcastle can just do the best they possibly can be. And I don't think Eddie Howe has been backed. I do not think he's been fully backed, and I feel for the guy, because at the end of the day, he can only do what he can do as a manager. But Guehi was a big target for us. We haven't got him. We spent too long on him, and you've got to criticise us for that, because why have we spent too long on him if it wasn't ever a deal that Newcastle could have got done? So yeah, 2 days left the window now. Well, Newcastle are going to do anything, has to be now. So we'll update you in terms of transfer news as that happens. My personal thoughts, we'll talk a bit more in detail after the window is closed. I want to be fair in the club. I want to be fair, we've still got the rest of this window. They've got a chance to completely put me in my place and put you guys in your place as well, and still got a chance to wow us in the last couple of days. But I've got to be honest, I think it's been a bad window. I mean, outside are looking in on it. It's nowhere near good enough, and questions do have to be asked, because why was this not dealt with weeks ago? We could have had Guehi dealt with weeks ago. We could have been in a position where he wasn't cup tied, and if the deal wasn't going to happen, we could have moved on quicker. We haven't, and that's the problem Newcastle's faced. We took too long with a deal that Palace never wanted to sell, and Newcastle were never happy paying that money. So why has this deal continued to be pressed on? It's poor. It's honestly poor. But take care though. We'll see some more transfer videos tomorrow, I'm sure, because something's going to come out, whether that be positive or negative. So stay tuned, and we'll see what Newcastle get up to. Has to be someone coming in though, because it's been such a poor window.